Welcome back to the Pillar Performance Podcast. This is Jada from Team Pillar, and today we're releasing a special episode. We were lucky enough to collaborate with Ryzon Apparel to bring forth an activation called the Fortissimo Lounge in Germany. We were in the company of brands such as Canyon, Marzocco, HOKA and Maurten. The intention was to showcase the evolution of Jan Frodeno and how he has progressed to be the greatest triathlete of all time. We had the honor of doing a panel discussion with Maurten, hosted by Dr. Sebastian Zeller, founder of the Triathlon Crew, to discuss the evolution of sports nutrition, in particular macronutrition through Maurten and micronutrition through Pillar. Thank you, Ryzon, for having us. This is that discussion. Hope you enjoy.
A warm welcome to this panel talk today. We are gathered here to dive into, for me, I think you as well, the fascinating world of sports nutrition. We will explore the evolution of sports nutrition, mainly in the name of macronutrients, especially carbs for Maurten, and then micronutrients with Charlie of Pillar. And of course the importance of it, of fueling, and just to let you know, if you race tomorrow and you don't have a fueling strategy, you're a little bit late to the game, but we can help out. But without further ado, let us begin with the introduction. You guys can take a deep breath and think how to introduce yourself. Now I will start. Yeah. So my name is Sebastian. I'm the head of Triathlon Crew, which is more or less a YouTube channel and some Instagram work. And I'm a sports scientist and I have the privilege today to discuss a few topics today, to interview those guys who I think are more informed than me on some topics. And so, Malte, you could take a breath, please.
Yeah. And you forgot you're really deep into coaching as well.
Ah, yeah.
My name is Malte. I'm looking after global sales at Maurten. I'm less of a triathlete. My background is in long distance running, so that's where I have a lot of touch points with viewing as well, looking at the marathon distance. And actually, it's quite exciting to be here. Also exciting to see this beautiful weather. So looking forward for the race tomorrow. And again, thanks for having us.
Thanks, Sebastian. I am Charlie Lawson. I'm the global head of sales for Pillar Performance. My athletic background, I was an international swimmer, long distance swimmer, first in the 1500. And then sort of moved into the 10K marathon when that came around just before the Beijing Olympics. Unfortunately, didn't start on the Olympics, but always been an endurance athlete. Most recently being Ironman up until an injury, unfortunately, did me at Ironman Florida a couple of years ago. Always worked with brands. I've been in ad tech and creative marketing from an agency perspective, but it's been a pleasure to come into the Pillar business. And bring my love of endurance sports and building brands. We're really excited. We launched the business about 2.5 years ago. We are our first sort of kind of concept in sports nutrition. So we're excited to be able to have the opportunity. So thank you to everyone here for coming and giving us this platform to be able to share some education about what we do.
Yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for the nice introduction. So I have prepared a few questions. I start with you, Malte. Can you provide us more or less a deeper overview over the last decade or so in sports nutrition from a macronutrient point of view, especially carbohydrates? Because when I think back, like 10 years ago, when I was like a semi-professional athlete also, like you maybe also, I had a lot of issues with nutrition. First of all, I didn't know how to do it, and when I thought I did it right, I had to do a lot of pit stops during the race or even throw up. So maybe you can take us a little bit there.
Yeah, so if you look back, Maurten has not been around for that long, first of all. So the Maurten journey started 2017. But if we look at professional racing, which was really happening before, a lot of people didn't have that much of a focus of how many cups per hour to push, what should it take on race day when it's warmer, what should it take if it's colder, does it have an influence? I remember being in St. George and we were on a bus tour and Mark Allen was talking about nutrition. He was talking about how many figs peaks in English, fighting peaks.
Yeah.
They were eating during the race. It was more metal about eating dry fruit and bananas all the way. So I think that was the start. If you look into the evolution, next were some more syrupy versions of maltodextrin, which people were taking in to push more sugars through. But if you then also look into the science, it clearly showed you that the maximum, if you go with the glucose on the energy level providers, you could push was 60 grams per hour, because there are no receptors in the body that allow you to go higher. Or if you try it, as you said, there might be a pit stop in between, because if you get too much sugar on the stomach, it actually causes GI distress. So, and then I think there were the first, the next steps was more, how do I add fructose that speaks for a different receptor, which also helps you then to get to a higher intake. But yeah, if you look at 60 gram today, there are athletes pushing 150 or even higher per hour. That's a huge step. And if you think from a critical level, it just means you need, if you want to push harder and race faster, you always need more fuel to keep that going. And the classic wording of bonking just happens because you don't have enough energy. So if you constantly fuel, you won't have the experience of bonking. So I think that's where more and more the shift is going to. And being at the expo the last couple of days, it's really good to have a lot of discussions that athletes are more and more prepared. And you can even ask them, so what are you planning for? How many grams per hour? Because then you can really just break it down on what do you need as your race fuel and what is already provided on the course. So there is clearly evolution, and for me the next step will be that people understand even more, I can train the gut. So if I do it in training, I can reach higher levels of carb intake in the race, and that's really important because this will lead to a better performance on racing.
Yeah, really important yet that you really have to train the gut. Please don't start with carbs. Then you have the problem again and again, so please progressing. And I think there's not another topic where we could increase the performance, so to say, by over 100%. So going from 60 to 150, like around 150%. I don't know any other topic in endurance sports where we have this evolution just in 10 years. Yeah, quite impressive. And then there's another world now. I think there always was, but the question is, where have you been? Because I think you brought this topic back again, and you do it differently, like more with carbohydrates. So, but wait, before we dive deeper in micronutrients, can you explain to us what micronutrients actually are? And I mean, maybe you heard that, but I think we need more information.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the best place to start about explaining what micronutrients are is to sort of make really clear what macronutrients are. And macros are proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. Micros is, I guess, everything else. And one of the reasons why we call it that is because you need your macros, or proteins, fats, and carbohydrates in higher volumes. And generally, we measure macros in grams, whereas we measure micros in milligrams. Or micrograms. And so micronutrition traditionally, I mean, we categorize it such as that, and that's pretty different from the traditional vitamin, which, traditional pharmaceutical incumbents who have operated in our space before that, because generally what they've done is, so I guess maybe oversimplified the category, calling it the vitamin category. Now, the reason why we think that's not a simplification is because there are a lot of elements that comprises the micronutrition sort of spectrum. Of course, there are key vitamins that require vitamin C, the B family. There are also minerals like calcium and magnesium. But there's a whole bunch of other elements that have incredible properties that are great for people in general, but incredibly important in the pursuit of performance outcomes. And those include things like the root family for curcumin, boswellia extract. They have incredible anti-inflammatory properties. There's ingredients like we're using a patented version of eggshell membrane, which has the most clinical studies to show its efficacy for joint cartilage repair and maintenance. And then things like omega-3 fish oils, which, DHA, incredible for brain function and heart function, and EPA, which, we actually use an inverse ratio of omega-3s in our products because, again, we don't formulate for general wellness. We are unapologetically focused on endurance athletes, which we think has been the missing piece of the puzzle, to sort of tackle your question. And so in that product, we've really pumped up the EPA content because we're focused on that anti-inflammatory property. So yeah, I think micronutrition better categorizes the traditional vitamin and mineral supplement category. One, because it's probably grammatically correct because you just require them in microdoses, but also because we're endurance athletes. We think about sort of the key need states. And there's probably a couple of ways to look at it. Like we look at it as fueling, hydration, and micros. We had a call recently with Maurten and Olaf, and we've always looked at Maurten as a bit of a North Star because they are a science-led company that have pushed the innovation spectrum. We're talking about the innovation of pipeline over 4 decades when we were strapping real food to the top tubes of our bars. We look back to Mark Allen and Dave Scott and that era, all the way, fast forward, and we looked at, I guess, Maurten had innovated in terms of delivery system, but also in terms of the components of fueling. And we needed things that were convenient to be able to train and race with. And now we have delivery systems like gels, and now we have the hydrogel. And so we also take that science-led approach. We try and be innovative, but I think the main thing is that finally now there is a brand in Pillar that is, if you think about the traditional vitamin mineral category, the incumbents, I guess what they've done is they've looked at the total addressable market and they've said, the buyer, the demographic of vitamins generally is mum, 55 years plus, buying for her and her husband and her family. And so the niche of endurance athletes with sport has just been too niche for them. We are on the other side of that. We are unapologetically focused on performance outcomes and formulating for the people in this room and the people like you. So yeah, so that's kind of our story. That's what gets us out of bed every day and gets us fired up to help athletes. Our mission, I think a nice way of explaining it and the way we often talk about it. I'm sorry, Malta, again, we often use Maurten in this discussion because we have a lot of respect for Maurten. We think it's the most innovative fueling brand. If you are using Maurten, which you should be, to get you to the finish line, and the finish line means in a race, but also at the end of a training session, Pillar's mission is to help athletes get to the start line, feeling better recovered, with more energy, less sickness, and less injury. That's our mission.
That was a great pitch. Okay, so coming back to you, you already mentioned you 3 times, I guess, but I think over the time, and we see it on the photo of Jan with the gel in front of his right eye, Maurten has gained significant attention for their hydrogel-based carbohydrate products, as we see there, also like the drink. Can you tell us more about that and the technology behind it, maybe?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost it's important to understand hydrogel in general is an innovation or a system and technology, and it's kind of misleading in a way because I give you the gel and it's hydrogel, yeah, but it has a gel component in it, so it's clear. But we also have the hydrogel technology in our drink mix. So first of all, a hydrogel is pretty much standard if you look in the medical side, because what it does, it's a carrier system, and it helps you to get medicals, or in this, how we envision it, carbs through your stomach to the intestine, where they are needed, because this is where they can deliver the energy pretty fast. So in our case, we use a biopolymer, which is that hydrogel. It's consisting of alginate and peptide, and this really encapsulates the carbs. So when they hit the stomach, where the pH is 1.5 to 2, that correct? 2.5?
Maybe, I don't know.
So in that area, the structure doesn't break down, and the stomach is not exposed to sugar. And going back to the history of 60 grams, and we want to push as much as possible the Germany would say nadelöhr, bottleneck. The bottleneck is in the end always the stomach. So you want to cover it up and move it into the intestine where you have a higher pH, and there the structure breaks open and releases the carbs, and they can go into the bloodstream, and in the end this is where you get the quickest part of the carbs in, and then obviously using glucose and fructose to maximize it also had an impact. So in a nutshell, it's a carrier system which drives technology. If you buy one of the gels, you have it ready mixed. If you go for the drink mix, it reacts with the acidity of the stomach and it forms the gel. So if you would drink half a bottle and down in one, you won't have the effect of bumping around, because it actually forms the gel and encapsulates the carbs right in your stomach.
I think that's the big difference, because everybody said in the beginning that we know gels out there, but I think the definition is that those products were zero. And the definition of gel is that the gel can hold itself. So otherwise, imagine it would be zero, then it would be fluid in front of Jan's eye, and it can't hold itself. That's the definition of a gel from a chemistry point of view. Okay, and for you, Charlie, as well, the question. So maybe we look back in endurance sports the last 10 years. Which products have you seen there? Which of them work? Which you already changed, and so on and so forth?
From a micronutrition perspective.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Look, I think the one ingredient that I think endurance athletes have always known have had benefits for performance, they're a key part of, I guess, the puzzle, is magnesium. Magnesium sits as part of the electrolyte family, but I guess where sodium and potassium, you'd use in race. Magnesium is part of the it's one of the electrolytes that, I guess, calms the system down. Now, what we've done differently is our triple magnesium is our hero product, is probably the first thing to say. The thing that people forget sometimes, or again, just due to lack of innovation and therefore, awareness and education, is that it really comes down to the form of magnesium. There's three things at Pillar that we do differently. It doesn't matter which product at Pillar you pick up, three things will always be true. Because we formulate according to sports science 4 performance outcomes, we'll always be the highest potency product that you can find. And that's really important, because as endurance athletes, we deplete our macros and our micros at a faster rate than the sedentary or non-active community. And therefore, and because a lot of those micros are water soluble, our body doesn't have the ability to store them. And therefore they need to be restored consistently. Magnesium is the most efficient mineral in humans in the world, and even in modern diets, it's really difficult to get enough of them in modern diets. And so if you look at the rates, it's really high just in the non-active community. But when you're training for something like an Ironman, the insufficiency or deficiency rates go sky high. So there's a huge need state there. Our product has been formulated with 3 key ingredients, 3 forms of magnesium, because again, a lot of people are under the impression that magnesium is responsible for all these great things: better sleep, calmness, muscle recovery, reduction of cramps. But that's only true if you're using the right form of magnesium. So our one gets the name, it's called triple magnesium. It gets the name from the fact that we use 3 select forms of magnesium. The 2 real heroes that I want to talk about there is the glycinate. In parts of the world it's called glycinate dihydrate, and largely in the United States it's called bisglycinate. Bisglycinate magnesium is responsible for the calmness effect on the central nervous system. So you'll know now, topical, everyone's talking about matching the workload, matching the recovery to the workload so that we can do better at loading loading the body, loading the system day after day, build fitness and build adaptation over time. So the recovery has to match the work. Part of that, and particularly for age groupers, is there's only so many hours in the day, and most of us don't have the luxury of, like Jan and the crew, of being able to go have sleeps between training sessions and recover. We've got to go and work, and we've got to raise a family, and of course Jan is also raising a family, but we've got full-time jobs. And so being able to optimize things like sleep, critically important, because it's the quality that we're after. So how glycinate magnesium manifests itself, besides that calmness, is that it helps us link our sleep cycles better, and therefore allows us to get more deep and REM sleep. What's incredible about our product is that for one of the first times, because we live in a world where everyone's walking around now as a walking data field, with things like Aura, Ring, and Whoop bands, and even Garmin, is that everyone has now got the data, readily available, and then obviously through things like social media, that shareability. So what we're seeing now is we've got a lot of data out there, which we're going to be doing some work to inform future development of product as well. But that product's showing about a 10 to 20% increase in deep and REM sleep. So sleep is a huge part that we're focused on. The other part is our amino acid chelated magnesium. That word, Sebastian, you can probably talk about this with more authority, but the word chelated means bonded, and it means that form of magnesium is bonded or chelated to the amino acid protein, and therefore it can go much deeper into the muscle where other forms of magnesium can't get to. And that is a key one for muscle recovery and cramps. So I think, to answer your question directly, like that's probably how we've innovated, is we've just we've taken the products and looked in ways to optimize them. The last thing I'll say is that this is not something we talk about all the time, but the true innovation of the triple magnesium is the fact that magnesium in its raw form is actually incredibly sour, and most brands historically, because they're not formulating to the potency that we are, they've been able to get away with flavoring it or masking the sourness of magnesium. Pillar, what we've done is, because ours is such high potency, we would never be able to get away with it, and so what we actually did, we were the first brand that found a way to neutralize the sourness of raw magnesium, and therefore we can block it. We don't then have to add a bunch of nasties and additives and sugars into our product. We can flavor it naturally, and that's probably it's not a performance benefit, but it's an innovation that allows us to enjoy the product day in and day out, so that we can consistently supplement with something that we vitally need.
And as a small teaser here, you are the first ones to hear that. We will have a video on our YouTube channel about the triple magnesium or magnesium itself in 2 weeks' time, I guess. Tomorrow in 2 weeks, in German. Okay, back to you, Maarten. So you had a little break. We were talking about carbohydrates, especially for ultra endurance. Ironman is an ultra endurance event. But there are also high-intensity sports out there. I don't know, the Ingebrigtsens running 1,500, 3,000, whatever. Even cyclists, they are riding their bikes 4 hours, but then they have to hit the last climb. I think we saw that last week in the Giro, in the last time trial. So what else is out there that you could give us for those circumstances?
So, as you already experienced yourself, that you suffered on the bike, to kind of bring it to life and show that it's actually working, we recently launched Bicarb, and it's important to say we didn't relaunch Bicarb in a way, because Bicarb has been out there since the 80s, and there are tons of papers that actually show it's working, and Maurten was never trying to say, oh look, now we have Bicarb. People will say, but that's not a great innovation. What we looked into, again, saying like, you can only push 60 grams to your stomach, and you're getting problems with your stomach. We also looked into Bicarb in a way where it's painful for the athlete, which usually is also the stomach. And we just found a way with a hydrogel solution to move the salt tablet through the stomach that they are getting to the intestine. So what Bicarb in the end then is able to do, and that's why it's working, is bringing down the pH of the blood. So it's not that Bicarb helps you bring down the lactic levels, as we've seen on your little exercise on the bike. You could even go higher and higher and higher, but you didn't feel like I'm just exploding and burning. So that's crucial to understand. Bicarb helps you to buffer away the pH of the blood. So it gives you a better recovery even after, or it allows you to have a different buffer capacity. Take the swim, where people would go all in to go to the first you probably would have higher lactic buildup and without Bicarb building up a way higher acidity of the blood, which limits you then going forward to perform right on the bike or later in the run. So overall, we see that there will be benefits, not only for those which you mentioned from 400 till, let's say, the steeple chasers, which are 3,000, 7-8 minutes, because you can already see Bicarb has been around in cycling for a long, long time, and these guys are really about, I can suffer, and they were taking a lot of pills or the baking soda in a mixed up in water,
Really tasty, by the way.
and just forget about the pain it causes because it works. But now we made it even way easier, and you don't have to suffer. So that's also, every time we look at innovation for Maurten, we want to give the best to the athletes, and we would not just bring out a product because there is a revenue road to hit. No, we are about solving problems, and usually the biggest problem is always through the stomach, and how do you get things moving that they can really benefit the athletes.
Yeah, and as you said, I think there will be a lot of pro athletes and also really ambitious age group athletes tomorrow on the start line, which have loaded Bicarb for the first 400 meters or 10 minutes of the race, because that's sometimes crucial if you're in the group, imagine, and then come out of the water in the first group, and then you can stay in the group. Vice versa, you are out of the group and then you lose valuable time, because there's always, we have to talk about that truly, there's always a draft benefit even if you are 50 meters behind someone. So I think there will be pro triathletes tomorrow who use it. Yeah. Talking about magnesium requirements, so this was a question from myself, and I asked you that before, a colleague, or your founder actually. Looking at different scenarios or surroundings, like training intensity or environment, like temperature. Today it's really hot here in Hamburg for Hamburg standards, I think. So I think, are there different requirements, or does it affect the need of magnesium?
Yeah, the simple answer is absolutely. And sometimes it's not even environmental, it can be just, genetic. So certainly, the requirements are different, the environmental factors are different. How we approach it essentially is that, again, all of our formulating is done according to sports science. And so we hit the upper echelon, because that covers the baseline for the highest needs. Now the great thing is, because when you use bioavailable ingredients, that even if the requirement isn't there, there's no adverse effect, because the bioavailability factor, what that means is, it means the body knows what to do with it. It's bioavailability ready. And so your body understands what it is, and therefore something like magnesium, you absorb 95 to 97% of it, and it just goes into the system. The reason why I point that out is because it's really important not to use synthetic forms of the ingredients. So again, pointing the finger at the big pharma, historically they have used synthetic forms of the ingredients, and therefore the body only absorbs about 5% of it. that's the kind of thing that then can lead to GI distress, because at the end of the day, magnesium is a salt. It's an electrolyte leading into salt, and so therefore, if it doesn't get absorbed into the system, where does it sit? It sits in the gut, and what does salt do? Salt pulls water towards it, and that water ultimately has got to go somewhere. So by using bioavailable ingredients allows us to formulate for the highest need, and then everything from there, is covered. So yeah, it's an interesting one. Like, it's probably a little different to macro requirements in terms of calculating exactly what you need based on the length of the race, based on your body weight and things like that. Micros is the thing that you use day in and day out. You use Maurten when you're training and when you're racing. You use Pillar every day. Micros is about the consistency, and so you use it on the non-racing and training days too.
And fun fact, if you use the triple magnesium for the first time to sleep better, you should hurry to the bed. I fall asleep on the couch actually. So like after half an hour.
Yeah. So I'll address that as well. It's a great point, and that's, again, you can take it just before you go to sleep, and you'll still have a great night's sleep. We say take it 20-30 minutes before, even up to an hour before, because that calming effect on the central nervous system is fantastic. Now, I want to point out though, magnesium is just a bioavailable mineral. It's not like melatonin. It's not like a sleeping tablet. So even if you've got an early flight or you've got a race in the morning, because it's a full recovery formulation, and even if you get limited sleep, you're actually getting more quality sleep, and you're going to wake up fresher. Unlike something like melatonin or a sleeping tablet, where you better have 8 hours. You better have an 8-hour block to sleep, otherwise you're going to wake up groggy and a bit out of sorts.
But fun fact, jumping more deeper into it, magnesium is actually a co-activator of
yes, serotonin to melatonin.
Yes. But I will show it in 2 weeks' time on YouTube.
Perfect. And I guess I think the other way to point that out is that you can take the triple magnesium in the morning after your first session of the day. That's absolutely fine, because again, it's not a sleeping aid in the sense of like a sleeping tablet. We just recommend taking it in the evening because you'll really maximize that sleep benefit.
Now, we looked a lot, or we took a deep look into the past and then the evolution over the last decade or so. But the real question is, triathletes are always the first responder, first mover. They want to have new stuff, right? So, question for you too: what's next? How bright is the future, so to say? But do you have in the pocket for this year, next year, whatever? You can't tell us maybe a secret, but I would have some ideas actually.
You can go first.
You have to take another breath.
You take the lead. I want to see how much you divulge, and then it might take me.
No, I think for us, as I said, if we bring a product to the market, we really want to make sure it serves a purpose. So the guys on the nutrition side that are leading this and really working with athletes all the time to understand where the pain points, they help us to inform what they call it's a white spots, which we want to find. We already identified some, but on the testing side, we're not fully ready yet. We know that recovery is a big point for athletes, and we really just want to look into it deep enough and have it backed by science that it makes sense to look into, and help them, the same like changing the game of fueling, changing the game of Bicarb. How can we change the game of helping athletes to recover better? Sorry, I can't say more, but it's too early to say in what exact direction this will go.
But I think I witnessed your philosophy, seeing how you developed the Bicarb. So we have been to Göteborg, I think a year ago or so, and we were really testing it then with the really high performance athletes. And it took some time when you really launched it. So it's not just talk, it's real talk.
So we're approaching this from two angles. The first thing that we're doing that's really exciting is that we're actually bringing in a new head of research into the business. I won't share names, but he's a great athlete. He has a PhD in HRV, in heart rate variability. He's a coach, and so that's going to be a really great, I guess, linchpin moment for the business, because it allows us to start conducting some proprietary research. Two of the areas that I'll focus on, really topical subject matter in the world of performance and nutrition or endurance right now is sleep, and the other is inflammation. Obviously, they talk to our current need states that we formulate towards now, but it will allow, so that's one thing that we're doing. The other is to start in 2024. I think there'll be some exciting partnerships with athletes that will allow us to do testing and research with our head of research and their teams to be able to, again, innovate for the future. We don't want to be sort of stagnant and stand still. We're obviously still young, and there's a lot of things that we need to do with our current range, but we know that there's a moment in the future that will then inform future product innovation as well. So yeah, there's some things to look forward to. It's probably still early days. I mean, at the end of the day, we're only a slightly over 2-year-old company. There's a lot of work to do as a business, more holistically as well. And we really want to let this range sing. Now, we're in a position right now where the hero product of our range, triple magnesium, is really driving the business. We have some new pack formats that are coming out that are going to be great. I mean, obviously, athletes are, we've got a beautiful glass jar, but as beautiful it is and as premium as it presents, offers challenges in terms of travel. So we've got a new travel pack coming out. The United States, they have some different requirements and with feet over there. So that's going to be exciting. And then I think one thing that we really want to do is, obviously there's a huge opportunity right now to make sure that athletes are sleeping better and recovering better with our triple magnesium, but also then to be able to drive this whole sports micronutrition category so that, people understand that there are opportunities to optimize performance from a micros perspective that also speak to the needs of energy, inflammation, and immunity. I mean, when you look at the data, there are so many athletes that miss their goals because they just get sick. And if you miss, if you look at the data, if you miss, and Sebastian, I'm sure you look at this all the time, if you miss key training blocks or key parts of your training blocks, or you get sick right before the race, all that hard work, all that time investment, all that money investment, can go out the window. And we just think that that's an incredibly crying shame because it's unnecessary to a large degree in many cases. And so for us, it's just about getting that message out there, education, and letting people have the knowledge to be able to optimize.
Yeah, totally. I think the main driver for athletic performance is consistency and overall training volume. I mean, you have to put in the time and the work, otherwise you won't reach it. And I'm totally with you. I mean, even those times where a lot of athletes miss out because of flu in a season or something like that, it's a big issue, and it's a really pain in the E, whatever. But yeah.
I've got a question actually for Mark.
Oh, no.
No, it wasn't. But one of the things that when I was racing that I loved about Maurten was that little moment, and the night before racing. And obviously, I know you can't make your Maurten drink mix too early because it's basically doing this experiment. And I always found it was a great way to take your mind off the nerves of the race by doing a little science experiment, making your Maurten up in this 500ml bottles and then transferring it into a 750 model and then for a bottle and doing it again. And I just found it really cathartic. The question I want to ask you about that is, what is it about the pH of water that can't be outside that I guess breaks the hydrogel component?
It's not the pH, it's a calcium level.
Content.
So if it has more than 40 milligrams, then you have the challenge that the structure would not form, or the hydrogel would not form in your stomach.
Yeah.
So that's always a bit the changing, and Yeah, the best story around this was when we signed up for Berlin Marathon. I was not involved. I was not involved in that. My now colleagues signed up for Berlin Marathon, and they said, "Hey, we're gonna have drink mix. It's gonna be the only marathon in the world that has Maurten drink mix," which is great because normally the runners don't have bottle service, so they could fuel with drink, not only gel. What they forgot is that Berlin water actually has very high calcium levels. So there was kind of a panic then coming to the race. We ended up bringing water tanks, and we're talking about 35,000 people running the race, so they needed a lot of water. I think over 30,000 liters of water from Denmark to mix the drink mixes, and yeah, for a moment people also loved it, the fact that wow, that's athlete service, but then we also said that's not really sustainable, guys, to bring water from Denmark all the way to Berlin. But at the end we also looked at it again through the lens of how can we serve better. And then we redeveloped the formula just for the Berlin water. So the drink mix you get in Berlin, it's a different one that you can now purchase.
Wow, that's incredible. Wow, I didn't know that, but I knew about the rest of the rank, so I would always buy bottled water. So
Volvic or Vitel, usually these are the ones that
sometimes you just want to be like supernatural and stuff like that. And then I did a bikepacking trip last year, and we went to the mountains and a lot of rain and stuff like that. And we didn't find enough water with low calcium levels, and also like natural and we found out even there the calcium, of course, concentration wasn't so low, so we had a lot of problems with that.
Wow.
Yeah, so prepare that. It's on every bottle, I guess. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Seb.